All right, everybody. It is Monday, July 24th, 2023. Happy birthday, Chip. It is. We're having a storm here, but I'm gonna keep pushing through, and hopefully the power doesn't go out and whatnot. So, let's get through this real quick for the market reviews for today, Monday, July 24th, 2023. This is the S&P 500 that went up by 18 points today. 0.4%. The Dow went up by 183 points, or a half a percent, and the Russell went up by 5 points, or 0.28%, and the Nasdaq went up by 26 points, or 0.19%. And oil, at least the ETF here, the ETF, the exchange traded contract, went up by $1.70, 2.46%. So, um, let's just buzz through these charts real quick. So we've been talking about topping out here for at least temporarily, and looks like that's what's happening on the hourly chart on the right hand side. The daily's still holding up here, and the weekly is it's extended, but it could actually use a bit of a pullback to take a breath. So the Dow here, I think I heard a news report. It's 11 days in a row of higher prices in the Dow. Well, it's great, and I've been participating in that with actually the UDow. It's down here. Uh, I took half my position off the table today because I'm practically at this target right here that we there's no reason to get greedy at this point in my mind. So we are in a squeeze fired long situation on the weekly chart, and if you watch squeezes long enough and for the firing of a squeeze, typically you'll get immediately or relatively immediately within a bar or two after a squeeze fires a pullback into these moving averages, and then it gets a chance to rise. But what it typically will do is after a squeeze fires, see if I can find one here, to the long side is really what I'm trying to talk about, but it might be a while since we've seen one of those. There you go. So back here we had a squeeze. If you're following along, it's here in the middle. It fired on this day, and then you can see it immediately pulled back into these moving averages, while the True Momo indicator was blue, 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 light blue, I should say, all the way up until over here, and then it's turned into dark blue. Well, um, so it's not just straight up, but you can literally like see that there's a chance to take basically just apply that same logic to the weekly chart. There's a chance we could pull back into this zone in the middle here, and then we could just load up again based off of the shorter time frames, which would make a ton of sense. Now, if it continues to just bust higher, that's why I'm still in a half a position, and that's how I play. So, let's look at the Russell. The Russell's been pulling back now for a few days, which again isn't really unexpected, and we're potentially, if you look at the True Momo indicator on the hourly chart, um, well, we're in a squeeze, but this is in potentially oversold territory. So, and which means we could go back up again. And I welcome that. I think it's a bull market's just fine. So, Nasdaq, um, it's been cruising along. It's been pulling back for really now a couple days, and nothing really destructive yet. But you can see that on the weekly chart over here, it's really considering to be paused or pulling back. Oil, for fun, has just been ripping higher. It's into 2 standard deviations at this moment. Um, Wish I would have stayed in, but I took profits when I did. It is what it is, and I looky here over on the weekly chart. Unless it just continues to run higher, we're again in one of these squeeze fired situations where we could see a pullback any time, which could possibly give us uh, a new clean entry, and we can see that over here on the hourly chart as well. If this thing pulls back into like a zone, and then we start to get some oversold signals like we did back here, that would be a good place to get in if we just basically get that indication again. So I don't know if it'll help, but I'm talking about basically if this pattern or this whole sell off and then buy back again would repeat off the edge of the chart right here. So then TLT is bonds. Bonds actually looks to me like it's setting up here. I'm probably a little early, and now that I'm sitting here looking at the chart, it's basically got one more day before I'm going to call it or not. I'm probably going to set a stop right under a pivot as soon as I find one to set it under. It might be just this one here, or it could be this one down here. So I have to run some numbers, and just basically that's it. It's, hey, there's not a whole lot of reasons to still be long here, and if I set a stop, the worst case that's going to happen is I'm going to get out. Just like I did today in BITO, BITO, which at the end of the day traded off 2.7%. You know, that gap down, it was the same kind of a thing. It got me out of the position, and I can just look to get back in again. There's one or two reasons to still be in this thing, but I just decided to cut my loss and set a stop, and that's it. It took out my stop. Now it was painful, but the rest of my positions more than made up for it today. Alright, that's probably enough of that, and let's go flip over to... Actually, I wanted to show one more thing here. The McClellan oscillators that I've brought up before, and I want to call out this is crossed down right there. This hasn't yet, but basically that period is the high. I know this one didn't get as high as that one did. This is the NYSE McClellan oscillator. This is the NASDAQ one, and I'm not saying that this thing can't just walk sideways and then go higher, but I would expect a pullback below this red line, which is the minus 60 area, because we got this falling, and it could do something like that, like it has before. But if you looky here where that fell and that fell, this looks like it's trying to do something similar. So that's all, is just using the tools that I've got to kind of set up. When you look at the confluence of everything, that's what I see. Alright, flip over to stockcharts.com, type in bullish, and buzz through the bullish percent indexes. Here's the Dow, unchanged for the day. The NYA up 0.59%. The transports, okay, this fell by 5%, so now it's at 95. It was at 100. It's gone as high as it can, and basically we need 1 more percent lower, and we will get a 3-box reversal. That was the transports. The NASDAQ minus 0.55% today. The SPX did not move. The OEX didn't move. And finally the NDX added on a new O to the downside after it rolled over the other day. So that's that. And then finally our automatic trading systems. We recalibrated some things this weekend so that This is, it's just not pulling back as much here, there, and here. This thing had gone underwater, so in reality, it's, my equity is not as good as this. But going forward, this will be, it'll trade less a little bit, and it'll pull back a little bit less, and that's why I recalibrated it. And so anybody that's in these systems, we will produce upgrades, um, but they're not 100% necessary either. I mean, the trading systems themselves remain intact. It's just a matter of basically adding some parameters that reduce the trades. So restricting the trades somewhat. This is what it looks like on a 1 year basis, and that we do this every now and then just to basically recalibrate and make sure the systems are still as viable, or as viable as they can be. Um, so this is the Russell. We did not change it, and we've had a couple of days of pullback now. This is what it looks like on a yearly basis. And then the Nasdaq's the one we probably changed the most, because this latest pullback is the same, but you'll notice that we're not as deep here. It's not drawn very well. We're not this deep. These, and actually, if you spread this out over longer than a year, well, here's the year chart. It looks just fine. And the last time we had a dip like this was 15 months ago, and I included that in the backdated to come up with the best way to reduce this drawdown, or to hopefully stop the bleeding. So with that, I'll leave you guys for the night, and we'll talk to you on Tuesday's review. Have a great night.